Death Knights, are they sent from the outer planes to do the bidding of their evil masters? Or are they just simply misguided knights or paladins who are cursed to ride these lands for an eternity? Are you ready for a different kind of story tonight? The Death Knight is one of those most feared creatures in all of Dungeons & Dragons, with hell itself on the heels of their next intended victim. This is our number 9 most feared creature in Dungeons & Dragons for 2020. While combing through some ancient tomes, I read that one of the first Death Knights on record was once a much loved and revered elven knight of a well-known noble family. Unfortunately, no names were given, just his station. The daughter of another family residing in the adjoining neighboring kingdom, was betrothed in his youth. Now this was a much-needed alliance, which would give newfound strength and unity to both kingdoms. One very powerful member of the knight's family was extremely envious and wanted to take this maiden for himself. So he commissioned a night hag to kidnap her and keep her until he returned to her mountainside hut. Now on his way back to his kingdom, his horse was spooked by a snake and was crushed against the rocks in a chasm down below. Now, as we know, when a hag kidnaps a young girl, she becomes corrupted and slowly transforms into a hag herself to either replace a fallen sister or to add an innocent to their coven. This transformation is through the rituals and teachings of dark hag magic. We also know that when an elven maiden is kidnapped, she will most likely be transformed into a green hag. 5 long years of captivity. One night she escaped and ran to be by her knight's side where she belonged. Not wanting to be apart for another moment, the following night the two were married, and immediately after the ceremony her transformation rapidly took place. The knight was infuriated and cast her out in the night, and then he tracked her down as if she was a wild animal. In a blinded rage, the knight kicked open the door, swinging his sword in one hand and a torch in the other. As a last-ditch effort, he plunged his sword through the heart of his once beloved. Immediately, he set fire to the hut, and the night hag burned and was screaming in agony and pain. Now, unknown to him, the real leader of this coven was a pure hag. She was watching very quietly, seeing the entire act playing out from the shadows. As he was leaving the burning hut, all of a sudden he was physically frozen in his tracks. Before him was his once beloved, as beautiful as she was when she was innocent. She ran to his arms and with a big embrace plunged a dagger into the soft spot between the knight's armor. This was a trick of the Bure hag. For this specially anointed poison dagger, his eyes fixed on the hag started to glow with a green flame, and his flesh started to melt and fall onto the ground at his feet. The vibrant blue of his soul was magically torn from his body and placed into the sword of his ancestors, rising now as the vengeance and forever to be the hellish undeath servant of the Bure hag. Another dusty tome that I came across, tucked away in the recesses of the libraries, seemed to be the instructions of an evil DIY of sorts. In order to become a Death Knight, you must search out the proper knowledge to perform the dark ritual of transformation. This is done by seeking out Death himself to aid you in your darkest desire. To truly be favored, you must have no earthly concept of fear whatsoever. For it is fear that will cause you to become a dark minion or worse. Through your performing of this dark ritual, your soul is tore from its mortal casing, causing instantaneous death, while your body is slowly consumed by a hellish green flame. Then your soul is cast into a weapon, which you have carried with you for many years. This weapon serves like a lich's phylactery, but you will not fear or hide it, and it is to be seen by mortal eyes. For you now wield your own soul in your weapon. With every strike from your newfound source of strength, and upon your command, your weapon can become ethereal as it passes through all forms of armor and clothing to strike at the flesh of your victims. This burns like death himself has his eyes on them. Never fear, if by some powerful force your weapon might be broken in combat or otherwise destroyed at the hands of powerful magical means. All you simply need to do is command your weapon back to its previously unholy vengeful state. Now, on the rarest of occasions, if your weapon is stolen from you, you will fall weak and distraught, and you will forever be on a quest to recover that which you no longer possess. Now I have for you a couple of death knights you might have heard of through your own personal readings. In an article in the 1983 issue of Dragon Magazine, number 79, we hear of St. Cargoth. He was a knight who was very jealous of a fellow knight in his order who had been promoted to a higher station, which he himself thought that he had deserved. Through his rage and being fueled by the envy, he searched for the forbidden powers of undeath, aiming to seek his revenge and take the position that he himself knew he deserved to have. Now, through undeath, he became the first Death Knight to ever be on record in the world of Greyhawk. Now I have for you a story of a more popularly well-known Death Knight from the Dragonlance Chronicles. His name is Lord Soth. His story is far worse than St. Cargoth's, for his involved the birth of a monstrous abomination, which was the very mirror image of his soul. Thinking that his wife was an adulteress, he slaughtered both his wife and their newborn child, even though he himself had been unfaithful to his wife. When he was captured, they sentenced him to an execution, and when the day finally arrived, he was taken away by a group of knights that were very loyal to him. He then heard of a quest that only he could do. He sought out to prevent the great cataclysm that was to befall and ruin the entire world. Now here's where it gets a little confusing. While on this quest, he turned back, fueled by the false stories of his new wife's infidelity and their newborn child not being his. When he confronted her about her misdeeds, the great cataclysm took place. Fire rained down upon the keep. Lord Soth refused to save the lives, so the fire consumed everybody within. Now, this isn't the end. Lord Soth and his knights rose from the burning hell within the cataclysm, and he became the first Death Knight. Now followed him in undeath as they did in life. This right here could be a lesson for anyone out there. Now, there are just as many false rituals out there as there are true ones. To the unknowing person, these sound so believable and are far way too easy of a way to become or to have eternal vengeance. For these are the trappings of evil sorcerers and warlocks who are hell-bent on the farming of wicked souls for their own vile and dastardly plans, which is another topic for a different night. Is the romantic tragedy of the Knight's Tale more believable, or the soulless deal with death himself ringing more to be true? And what do you think of St. Cargoth and Lord Soth? Did they get a raw deal, or did they get exactly what they had coming to them? And tell me with a like, and give us a comment down below here what you thought of tonight's stories. If you missed last year's Monster Countdown, you can find the playlist right over here. Now, if you're not one of our cave dwellers yet, step on that subscribe button so you get notified when we publish our next video. And remember, the harvest isn't just for crops.